Welcome to another edition of the Bull Session, the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. Independence Blue Cross Bull Session is always a fun place to come, and also we're at Chickies and Pete's in South Philadelphia. Beautiful venue, getting ready for the Phillies game today, and great food, great ambiance. Our special guest today is my good friend, Temple graduate, Major League pitcher, Major League pitching coach, Major League manager, did it all in the big leagues. Joe Kerrigan, the pride of Temple University. Joe, how are you today?
Good, Billy. Good to be with you again.
And Father Judge.
Father Judge High School.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Joe, we were talking off the air. It's interesting what you said about pitchers today and their follow-through. And you had a number that was astronomical about the amount of pitchers who are undergoing Tommy John surgery because of what?
It's amazing. The USA Today did a study 2 weeks ago. Of the 64 hardest pitchers, hardest throwers in the big leagues this year, 30 of them have Tommy John surgery. That's nearly half. So if you throw 98, 99, 100 miles an hour, you got a 50-50 chance that you're going to come down with Tommy John surgery. The ligament, the arm, it just can't handle that kind of arm speed. And it is remarkable. All these guys, Tampa Bay Rays have had 11 pitchers in the last 3 years come down with Tommy John, including 3 this year. It is amazing the staggering rate of pitchers that are having to deal with Tommy John, including Ohtani. Now, the biggest name, who, of course, needs Tommy John surgery before the season ends or right after the season ends.
Joe, isn't that incumbent upon a pitching coach, the manager, to notice that the kid is not following through? Yeah. They should, say, wait a minute. You got to follow through on every pitch. What's going on here?
It's amazing when I watch these guys throw 100 miles an hour. The recoil, the non-follow-through they have. It's like their arm is hitting a brick wall. Absolutely no follow-through. They land on a stiff leg. They spin out. All the momentum stops. It doesn't go towards home plate. And most of these guys, if I'll say 70 or 80% of these guys have had surgery, are those guys with no follow-through, no finish. And, of course, when you have that much velocity going on in your arm and your arm speed, and when you try to stop it right away with a recoil, it's like your arm hitting a brick wall.
It's amazing. I mean, you're a former pitching coach. You read this article. You watch a lot of baseball. I mean, it's incredible that people don't realize what is happening to the game.
It's amazing. You know, we were taught at an early age how to follow through, how to get through your pitches. In the minor leagues, we were all taught that early, not to stand up, not to look at the pitch, but go ahead and bend your back, follow through, extend your arm. Now it's the exact opposite. If you look at Ohtani pitch, he's probably the number one poster boy for a non-follow-through. And this is his second Tommy John he's going to go through. And that guy, you know, he spins out, he recoils half the time. He almost goes backwards after he throws the ball. And you can see where that wear and tear is going to lead to surgery.
Are they teaching the art of pitching today from the low minors through the majors? I mean, when you came up, the art of pitching was, you know, you wanted to be a guy to be able to work the plate in and out, up and down. It doesn't seem like these guys understand the game like you did. I mean, you came up through the ranks, but it doesn't seem like they understand what it is to be a good pitcher.
Yeah, good location was equated to good deliveries. You control your body first. You can control where the ball is going. Nowadays, it's all about speed training. They train with weighted balls. They throw balls as hard as they can, against the wall. It's velocity first. The hell with a good delivery. The heck with good balance. The heck with a good follow-through. Let's train the arm and the body to throw the ball as hard as we can.
There's only so many bullets in that arm.
Exactly, especially when you're dealing with a bad delivery. You see a lot of these guys who recoil, who don't have good finishes on their pitches, it's okay for 30, 40, 50 pitches, but if you see them trying to get into the 5th or 6th inning of the game, you see a drop in the velocity, maybe 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. And that comes from the wear and tear they're putting on their arm by not finishing.
We also talked about Aaron Nola, who's looking for a mega deal. Of course, pitching is at a premium in baseball, but we've seen the number of Rodon signed with the Yankees. He hasn't been a factor. DeGrom goes down with the Rangers. Ohtani was looking for that mega deal. He's on the shelf with Tommy John eventually after the season. I mean, when you look at an Aaron Nola, what would you do if you were the general manager of the Phillies? Would you give him $25 million? I mean, obviously there's teams out there who will be knocking at the door to get a guy like Nola because he's an innings eater.
Yeah, he is a very reliable guy. Say what you about him this year. He's had his ups and downs. He's been a little erratic this year, but he will post every 5 days, and he will give you 200 innings. And there's a big market for that. But I don't know. It only depends on your budget. You know, does it affect the tax you might have to pay for going over the cap? It's a tricky thing that the general manager has to deal with when you enter into a final year. You're trying to sign Nola to what? 4 years, 5 years? How many years am I going to give him? 20, 25, 30?
I'd give
What's
him
my
3
budget?
at most.
What's my budget?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And today, that tax number, the amount of tax that you have to pay once you get over the salary cap, that comes into play a lot.
What do you see in Nola? You brought up a very interesting statistic about Nola working out the windup and working out the stretch.
Well, every 6 weeks that I was a pitching coach, I would do a profile on my pitchers. What's a profile? A profile is, well, let's look at their first pitch strikes. How was it opposed to last month? Let's look what right-handers and left-handers are hitting off them. Did they have a spike against left-handed hitters? Let's see what they are out of the windup, what their batting average is out of the windup as compared to the stretch. Maybe there's a mechanical flaw. Well, here's the thing with Nolan. It's been going on. I've been tracking this for about 3 months. Out of the windup, the hitters are hitting 216 off of Nola. 216, which is one of the lowest averages in the league. But once you get them in the stretch, they're hitting 287.
Wow.
Now, if you're a hitting coach on an opposing team and you're facing Nola tonight, what's the first thing you say in your team meeting? Hey, let's get him in the stretch, fellas. Look at these numbers.
Get on base.
Get on base. His on-base percentage, 260 out of the windup, 337 out of the stretch. His slugging percentage, the amount of damage, doubles, triples, home runs, 407 out of the windup, 500 out of the stretch.
Wow.
So there's an issue going on with him out of the stretch. It's probably a mechanical issue. It might be what kind of pitches he's using, his sequence of pitches. But in my experience, it's mainly been a mechanical issue. He's not getting his body in the right place out of the stretch to throw the ball where he wants to.
That's incredible. I mean, you would think with all this data they have, all the coaches they have. I remember back in the day I had the manager and 4 coaches or 3 coaches. Today they have 61 coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, with all this information, don't you think you'd be able to notice those numbers? This is the analytics people.
Well, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. I'm sure someone has brought this to the pitching coach's attendance. But what do? You got to know how to fix it. As a coach, why is this fastball flatter out of the stretch? Why is this breaking ball hanging out of the stretch more than it is in a windup? So you got to know how to fix it. And sometimes the guy might be resistant. Say, they're just numbers, Well, Aaron, I didn't put those numbers there. You put them there. I'm not making these things up. The hitters put those numbers there. So sometimes you get a little resistance, maybe a little wall you have to break down with a pitcher.
Now, you mentioned resistance with pitchers. And you dealt with a lot of great pitchers over the year. The main guy was Pedro Martinez. How do you get through the pitchers? Because you were a pitcher. You guys are a special breed. You're not like an everyday player. Your mindset is different, is it not?
Yeah, pitchers are a lot different than position players, that's for sure. But you have to gain a trust with the pitcher. And trust comes through knowledge. They have to trust your knowledge about pitching, about the game, about mechanics. That has to come first before that guy will trust you to help him. You know, that's the important thing you have to get through first.
Now, a lot of guys haven't been in the big leagues. Pitching coaches, hitting coaches, bench coaches. I believe you had to play on the big stage to really convey this information. There may be exceptions to the rule, but I believe you'd have to play in the big leagues in order to build the confidence of a young pitcher or a young hitter. You agree with that?
Well, it helps to know that student knows that the teacher's been there, been on the mound in a big situation, or been at the plate in a big situation, knows what it's like to struggle, knows what it's like to go, you know, down the toilet for a couple weeks, you know, and think there's never an end coming out. So yeah, that helps, you know, because you live with he's been through. You live through the frustrations, you live through the highs, and he knows that you've been there and you're talking from a different perspective as opposed to someone who's maybe never pitched at a professional level.
Now, you look at a guy like Suarez. I brought him up before the show. Yesterday he was sailing through with a no-hitter. Now, he's coming off an injury.
Right.
You have to be very cognizant of once he gives up that first hit, somebody's got to be up in the bullpen very quickly. You agree with that?
And they were. They were. The Phillies stalled,
right?
And they got the relief pitcher in within one batter.
Right.
It was really quick.
Right. It's amazing how fast
he hit a wall. That's right.
I mean, what do you see in Suarez? I mean, he's been up and down this year with injuries. How do you handle him going forward?
Well, he's a field guy that needs repetition, you know, because he's got such a good curveball, good changeup. He spots his fastball. He throws his fastball inside the right-handers really well. But I believe he's a touch and field guy, and he needs repetition. And the more he pitches down the stretch, I think you'll see him get better and better and hopefully be a reliable guy going into the playoffs.
Now, I was talking to somebody yesterday. The Tampa Bay Rays have eliminated the sweeper with their pitchers. Is that a good idea?
They must have some evidence. You know, maybe it's from all those guys that have had Tommy John the last 3 years, you know, the 11 guys we're talking about. Maybe they think that's a part of one of the reasons why Tommy John is occurring in so many of their pitchers. They must have some validation behind it.
Joe, when you were a pitching coach, fastball, curve, changeup, and maybe a slider.
Right.
Do we try to teach these kids too many other pitches when they're coming up as young players?
Call it what you want. A sweeper is a slider. Mm-hmm. That's all it is.
Right.
It's a slider. Some guys throw a little bigger slider than others, you know. Larry Anderson, he threw a 3-foot wide slider. That would have been called a sweeper today.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of names. It really is the same pitch.
But, again, do you think they overtax these pitchers with the amount of pitchers they try to put them in their arsenal?
Not really. I think a good pitching coach is going to try to stick with 3 pitches with the starter, 3 main pitches to try to master those, and then he'll go from there.
All right, Chris Ermer, we got to take a little break here on the Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. The Independence Blue Cross Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. Chris Ermer doing a tremendous job. Dan Baker, I'm pinch hitting. I'm Bill Werndl. Pinch hitting for Dan Baker today. But next week, he'll be in Glassboro, New Jersey. And his special guest is the farmer, Gene Garver, who was one of the outstanding relief pitchers for the Phillies and a number of other ball clubs throughout his major league career. But that's next week at Glassboro, New Jersey, Chicky and Pete. Let's take a quick break on the Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
I SEPTA Philly.
I SEPTA Philly. I SEPTA Philly.
I ride the Broad Street line. Do you know how expensive parking is?
I do not have time to deal with traffic.
Because it's better for the environment.
I ride SEPTA all the time.
Monday through Friday, and whenever game day is.
I'm out the door and at my stop by 7:30.
I catch up on work when I ride.
I check Twitter, text my buddies.
I watch sports highlights, or lowlights.
For real Philly fans, SEPTA is the hometown way to go. Ride with us at iseptaphilly.com.
SEPTA offers a variety of career opportunities. Our core business is transit, and with 5 modes of service, we rely on and need operators, engineers, and conductors. But it takes a host of other specialties, including mechanics, electricians, plumbers, masons, painters, carpenters, welders, and more to keep the system moving. As an employee, you will earn competitive compensation and great benefits, including medical, dental, prescription, and a pension. Visit jobs.septa.org to apply today. That's jobs.septa.org.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
Welcome back to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's. And our special guest today is Joe Kerrigan, former Major League player, pitching coach, manager, did a number of things in Major League Baseball. I'm Bill Werndl, pinch hitting for Dan Baker today. Dan will be back next week in Glassboro, New Jersey, with his special guest being Gene Garber, the former relief pitcher for many, many years in baseball. And, of course, the great Foreman families here, as they normally are, week in and week out. They're great supporters of the Bull Session. Joe, interesting little note about the schedule coming up. In about 45 minutes, the Phillies will tee it up with the best team in baseball. And they have to take care of some business. They got to win at least 3 out of the 7 games they face in the next 7 games, right?
I would think so. You got 20 games to go. The Phillies have 20 games to go. The next 10 games, 7 are against Atlanta, 4 here, doubleheader today, 3 in Atlanta next week. In between, they go on the road and play 3 against St. Louis. Don't get boat raced. Exactly what you said. 3 and 4, 4 and 3 in those 7 games, and they'll be fine. They'll be okay. They have a 3-game lead in the loss column for the first wild card seed, which is huge because you get home field advantage. And Phillies probably have the best home field in all of baseball. And that, I mean, it's like coming into Cameron Indoor at Duke to play basketball, or Palestra in the old days. The noise, the intensity of these fans, the emotional lift that they give the Phillies, this is a really hard place to play. And most of the managers and players admitted that last year after the playoffs were over.
Joe, you mentioned Atlanta, and they're on a record pace for home runs, slugging percentage. They have a special way of developing the players. A lot of those guys are homegrown products. I mean, they've got Matt Elson and a couple other guys, but most of these guys are homegrown products. It used to be the Dodger way. Is it the Braves way now?
It seems to be. You got to learn how to draft, which they have good scouts. But more importantly, you got to have good teachers in the minor leagues. And everybody's got to be on the same page and teach the same thing with regard to hitting, base running, outfield play, infield play, all the little things that make you a good organization. And obviously they have good teachers in the minor leagues. But this lineup, they're 44 games over 500. That is astounding. They're on a pace to do something historic that no team in the history of baseball has ever done with regard to the amount of home runs that they hit. And right now, they are slugging at 500. That's a slugging percentage of 500 right now on this date. If they finish 500 or more, they will become the first team in history. Not even the 27 Yankees had a slugging percentage of 500 or more. And you look up and down that lineup, every one of those guys swings to do damage. And every one through 9, can do a lot of damage.
Joe, they're pitching. They lost a couple of guys early. They go down the minors. They find another guy. You mentioned scouting, player development. They don't wait. They say, okay, it's time for you to come up. We're not going to put you on a routine.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be up here when we want you. You like that philosophy?
Yeah, a guy gets hot and he's pitching well in Double-A, and we have a need. We're not going to look down to Triple-A. If he's the best pitcher in our system, regardless if he's in Double-A or not, let's bring him up.
Right.
And I think that's a good way to do things. Grab a guy when he's hot, when he's pitching well, and they seem to have a really good feel about their players when they have to go down and grab somebody out of the minor leagues.
You look at the Dodgers, they've had problems with their pitching staff, but Dave Roberts has kept the thing together up there. And then you look at the other clubs in the hunt. Milwaukee has a good starting staff, but they're not very good hitting-wise. But if the Braves, I think the Phillies would have, if they win their first round, they would have to play either the Dodgers or the Braves in the second round, right?
Right.
How do you see those matchups?
I think Atlanta is the class of the National League this year. I'd be very surprised if they didn't reach the World Series. They're just too strong. Their lineup, their pitching, their fundamentals, their manager, and I think they have a bad taste in their mouth after what happened last year. They did not play a very good playoff series against the Phillies. They were not very fundamentally sound, and you don't see that in an Atlanta Brave team. And I think this year you see a team that's on a mission. And I agree with you. I think eventually it looks like a Dodger and Brave matchup for the National League, and I think that'd be really good baseball to watch.
Joe, when you look at Atlanta, you mentioned all the things that they do, and their manager is a lifer in their system. And, of course, he surrounds himself with the right people on the bench.
Older managers.
Right.
Guys that have played, guys that have been around, guys that have known the game.
Right.
And have played the game, have been former managers. Every one of them is a veteran major league coach. And I think that really helps. Plus, having been around Bobby Cox, and a lot of those guys have been around Bobby Cox for a long time. And, you know, they have that, the team has like the temperament of Bobby Cox, like the teams of Bobby Cox from the past. And I find that really interesting.
Who was the best manager you were around in your career?
Oh, boy, I've had a lot of them. I played for Earl Weaver. I played for Dick Williams. That was like, two Darth Vader characters. They were no-nonsense guy. And then in the modern era, I had Felipe Alou, one of the most knowledgeable baseball men I've ever been around in my life. Jimmy Williams, we had he was really knowledgeable. I've been lucky to be around a lot of really good, smart baseball men, pitching coaches, and, you steal from them. That's where you get your knowledge.
You said about pitching coaches. You were a very successful pitching coach. You developed Pedro. I mean, he had the stuff to do it, but you took him to the next level. What pitching coach really had the impact on Joe Kerrigan's career?
I had a guy named Larry Benarth when I first came up. in Montreal, and Larry Bernard pitched for the Mets in the early 60s.
Right.
Larry Bernard was a baseball player at St. John's, played for Lou Conaseca. Lou Conaseca, the great basketball coach, was also the baseball coach.
Really?
So that's where he got his foundation. Galen Cisco, I had as a pitching coach in Montreal when I was the bullpen coach. Galen Cisco was the blocking back for Hopalong Cassidy
at Ohio State.
Yep. And then he pitched for the Mets in the early 60s. So he had a great background. And then I had Jim Brewer when I was a pitcher in Montreal, the Montreal Expos. Jim Brewer was a great left-handed relief pitcher, screwballer for the Dodgers in the 60s and 70s. And he taught me an awful lot. Then I had Ray Miller, the great pitching coach of the Baltimore Orioles. So I've been touched with a lot of guys that have had their fingerprints on me.
Now, let's break down the Phillies starters. You love Wheeler. You're going to give him the ball in the postseason. But we talked about Nola. We talked about Suarez.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the two other guys that possibly could be a factor in the postseason, probably out of the bullpen. Taijuan Walker and Michael Lorenzen. How do you see this working out for these guys?
I think the Phillies would like to get one left-hander out of there to start in the postseason, just to mix some things up. And I think if you had to send the other two guys to the bullpen, that'd be okay too, because I think they could help you extend games, or maybe if your starter got in trouble early, you wouldn't be afraid to go to a backup starter in the fourth or fifth inning. So anything goes. It's really all hands on deck, especially when you get to a 3-game series in a wild card situation. So you can't wait for a starter to find himself. He's going to find himself. You let him recover through. Now you don't have that luxury in the playoffs. A guy gets a couple runners on. I don't care who he is, Nola or one of your key starters. Hey, let's go. Get somebody up. Can't afford a big inning.
Lorenzen has pitched out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
But Taijuan Walker hasn't.
No.
How difficult of an adjustment is that for a Walker to get down there and pitch out of the bullpen?
It is, but as long as he's starting an inning and not coming in the middle of the inning, I don't think it's that big of an adjustment in the playoffs, during the playoffs. I think people can handle it.
Are you concerned about the Phillies' bullpen? Because they seem to be coughing up leads. They lost 2 out of 3 from Miami. I mean, Kimbrel is not the pitcher he was about a month ago.
Yeah.
Sir Anthony Dominguez has struggled. I mean, Alvarado is Alvarado. Are you concerned about the bullpen? Are they spent at this point?
Yeah, it looks like they're limping to the finish line, doesn't it?
Right.
You got Kimbrel, who's 37 years old, who's approaching, the maximum amount of innings and games he's ever pitched in his lifetime. So, you're worried about that wear and tear. And you're worried about the injury factor. A lot of these guys are coming off of injuries. If I use them too much, if I overextend them, will they get hurt again? And that's something that goes on in the manager and the pitching coach's mind. So it's a delicate balance. You hope that they have enough bullets to get them to the finish line. There's 20 games left. They seem to know how to use these guys when they need a day off. So, but the key is the starters have to give you enough 6-7 inning games where you don't abuse those bullpen.
Joe, when I was growing up, I remember the 9-man pitching staff, a 10-man pitching staff. Now teams have 14 pitchers. Do you like the idea of
13? You can't have more than 13.
13. All right, 13. Yeah. 13 pitchers on a staff. I mean, that's an awful lot of pitchers.
Yeah. But the way they use guys nowadays and the way they limit the innings on these starting pitchers, is throw 100 miles an hour. You can see why you have to have a 7-8-man bullpen.
But you remember back in the day, you remember J.R. Richards, he threw probably 120 miles an hour, right? I mean, but what is different with pitching today? I mean, is it just throw as hard as you can for as long as you can? I mean, we're not teaching the art of pitching, are we?
And be damned what happens to your arm. Just gear it up and throw it 100 miles an hour, and if I need surgery in 3 or 4 months, I'll get the surgery and I'll come back a year later. I mean, that seems to be the mindset. And a lot of these guys, they don't care about deliveries. They don't care about finishing. They don't care about what that recoil and that non-finish will do to their arm. They see that they can throw 100 miles an hour. I'm just going to try to keep throwing it harder and harder and harder and be damned what happens to my arm.
But you were around some very good pitchers in Montreal who could get it up there pretty well. Rogers, people like that. I mean, they were probably pitching. They didn't use the clock as much as they do today.
All with great deliveries.
Right.
Great finishes.
But they
really took a lot of pressure off their arm.
Right.
The way they finished pitches, the way they followed through. Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing today, you know. I think throwing as hard as you can for as long as you can, I do not like that motto at all. I think you have to teach the art of pitching. Simple as that. You agree?
Yeah, but, you know, baseball is a series of trends over 5, 10, 15 years. That's open about 5 years. We'll go back to teaching proper deliveries and finishes in the minor leagues. They'll realize that there's such an epidemic now that it's not worth speed training to teach a guy to throw 100 miles, 105 miles an hour with a bad delivery when he's going to break down.
Joe, well said. Let's take a quick break on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. The great job by our producer, engineer extraordinaire, Chris Ermer, is Mr. Reliable at WBCB. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
I-SEPTA Philly.
I-SEPTA Philly. I-SEPTA Philly.
I ride the Broad Street line. Do you know how expensive parking is?
I do not have time to deal with traffic.
Because it's better for the environment.
I ride SEPTA all the time.
Monday through Friday, and whenever game day is.
I'm out the door and at my stop by 7:30.
I catch up on work when I ride.
I check Twitter, text my buddies.
I watch sports highlights or lowlights.
For real Philly fans, SEPTA is the hometown way to go. Ride with us at iseptaphilly.com.
SEPTA offers a variety of career opportunities. Our core business is transit, and with 5 modes of service, we rely on and need operators, engineers, and conductors. But it takes a host of other specialties, including mechanics, electricians, plumbers, masons, painters, carpenters, welders, and more to keep the system moving. As an employee, you will earn competitive compensation and great benefits, including medical, dental, prescription, and a pension. Visit jobs.septa.org to apply today. That's jobs.septa.org.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. we're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
We are back on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. Our great special guest is longtime Major League player, coach, manager Joe Kerrigan. But before we get back to Joe, Independence Blue Cross Live Fearless Player of the Week. Each week during the Phillies season, we'll name a different Independence Blue Cross Live Fearless Player of the Week. This week's Live Fearless Player of the Week are 2 players, Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner. Start living fearless today by going to www.ibx.com. You like that selection, Schwarber and Turner?
Oh, boy.
You're a pitcher.
I'll tell you what, they're fun to watch because you never know what the hell they're going to do.
Right.
You know, I mean, the guy's going to hit a home run or strike out 4 times.
Right.
You know, or is he going to drop one in left field or hit 3 home runs? I mean, and Turner has looked like he finally found his confidence. You know, it looks like he's really settled down at the plate. I know he was really anxious the first 3 months of the season, but this is one of the most athletic people in the game of baseball, and he's a lot of fun to watch.
Now, Joe, when you're traded and you make the mega dollars like Turner, people can't tell me there's not pressure.
Sure.
Especially coming to a new ball club. It's one thing if you're just staying with another club and they extended you. But coming to another club, there's a lot of pressure because they're going to expect you to be Superman.
Especially when you play for an I-95 team. You play for Boston or New York or Philadelphia. Yeah, you see it happen all the time. Sometimes the first year in New York, first year in Boston. Castellanos last year in Philadelphia here. Sometimes there is a period of adjustment of 1 year that does happen.
Joe, you were in Boston as a pitching coach and as a manager. What's that atmosphere like?
Pretty much like it is here. You know, very provincial. You know, people, the fans think they have a part of ownership in the team with their heart, which they do. Great tradition, you know, and they're very smart. They know how to read a baseball game. They know how to read a player. And if, you know, if it's not going well, you're going to know it. You're going to hear about it. And if you don't have thick skin in those cities, you're better off playing in the middle of the United States somewhere.
Joe, I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to sit down with Ted Williams when you were the Red Sox. I mean, did you ever have that opportunity?
No. Ted was at advanced age when I was up there.
Yeah, he was just unbelievable. I had the opportunity. We did the final telecast at Connie Mack Stadium. I interviewed him. I asked him, I said, I need 10 minutes of your time, Ted. 45 minutes later, he was still talking about hitting.
He loved to talk about hitting. He really did. You know, a lot of the great former hitting coaches love to talk about hitting. I remember sitting around in the minor leagues talking to Larry Doby.
Oh, yeah.
We had Larry Doby in the Expos organization as a minor league hitting coach. Can you imagine? The first black man to play in the American League, one of the best hitters in the American League, a great hitter himself, left-handed hitter, and boy, I used to pick his brain all the time. It was fascinating.
Now, you're a pitcher. You're picking the brain of a hitter. What would you ask him about certain things?
Well, he would tell me.
Oh, really?
He would tell me why left-handed hitters hit the low ball better than right-handed hitters.
Really?
Because when you're a left-handed hitter, most of them are right-handed throwers. And what's your dominant hand when you hit left-handed is your right hand, because that's your strongest hand. And what's your dominant hand when you hit a low pitch is your right hand. And it's reverse. Right-handers are better high ball hitters because they're right-handed throwers. And what's the dominant hand, the most powerful hand on the bat, is the top hand. And that's nearest the high pitch. And listening to him tell me that, it's like, wow. Well, that makes too much sense, you know?
Right.
Jeez, I mean, the wealth of knowledge these guys, these old-timers had was just incredible.
That's absolutely amazing. Larry Doby.
Yeah.
He was a tremendous force in baseball. I mean, came up with the Cleveland Indians and, as you mentioned, broke the color barrier in 1948 and helped the Indians win their last World Series. I mean, he was an integral part of that team.
Yeah, that 53, 54 team.
This is the 48 team.
Yeah, our 48 team.
48,
the team that won, I think, 100. And later on, the team that won 111 or 112 games. in a 154 game season.
Yep.
Yeah, they had some tremendous teams back there.
Absolutely. Joe, when you look at the playoffs and you talk about a team like Atlanta, I mean, we have an expanded playoffs now. Do you like an expanded playoffs? Because maybe we're not going to see the best two teams. When I was growing up, when you were growing up, American League champ against National League champ. Do you like the expanded? I know why they do it. It's all about money.
Yeah.
But do you like the expanded playoffs?
Yeah, very much so. A lot more excitement brought into the game. Those early playoff games that the Phillies played last year, you can get more excitement in a baseball game than they brought.
Right.
So I think it's intriguing. It's much watched TV. When the first rounds are 3 and 5 games, it's now baseball. I mean, it's now. Every out, every pitch means something, and I think the intensity goes up a lot more in those 3-game series than opposed to a 5 or 7 game series.
You mentioned the intensity in a 3-game series because it's almost do or die every night out, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's important that your starter gets off in the first inning of 15 pitches or less, so he's got a chance to go into the 6th or 7th inning. I think that's really important. You pull the trigger a lot quicker with getting guys up in the bullpen. You're not afraid to pinch hit maybe in a key situation in the 5th or 6th inning, where during the regular season maybe you wouldn't. So it's a lot more managing goes on game within a game when you get down to maybe the 5th or 6th inning as opposed to the 8th or 9th inning.
Joe, do you like the DH?
No.
I hate it.
Yeah, the new rule, I love it.
Right.
I love it. I think it was time to get it out of the game, because when we were in the minor leagues, we were able to take batting practice. Our pitching coaches used to throw to us. We used to learn how to bunt off the high velocity machine. Now they won't even pitchers. Last 10 years, they won't let pitchers get near a pitching machine and learn how to bunt. They're afraid they break their fingers, It just makes sense, I think, in the modern baseball world, like the pitch clock. I think it makes a lot of sense, makes the game much more enjoyable.
So you bought into the DH?
Yeah. The pitchers it was a waste of time, really.
But when you were coming up, you took hitting seriously. A lot of pitchers took hitting seriously, didn't they?
Some did.
Right.
There were some, but for the most part, 90% of the pitchers, they couldn't hit. Even back in my era, it was an automatic out for the pitcher. And, back when I pitched, when you got down to 8 and 9, you had a breather. You had almost 2 automatic outs in the lineup when you pitched back then. Even 3, 7, 8, 9. Right. Nowadays, you don't have, especially against this Atlanta lineup.
Right.
The 7, 8, 9 are as good as the top of the order. So you don't have a respite here when you're a pitcher.
Joe, when you look at managers, and you managed, and we have a lot of analytics dictating the game, how can you fire a manager today? Because he's really not managing the ball club like it was when you were managing and even before you were managing. How do you come down and say, well, you haven't done the job? I mean, I think that's very unfair, don't you think? Because most of these guys are being fed information.
People don't realize something. The first guy I know to use analytics was Earl Weaver.
Okay.
And boy, he used it a lot. But he used it in a simple way. You're not playing today. How come? Let me get the book out. You're 3 for 24 off this guy with 15 strikeouts. That's why you're not playing today. The guy said, okay. Weaver used to keep track of what guys hit off us. I remember Rod Carew, great hitter for the
tremendous hitter.
Earl used to get the pitching chart after every game. Okay, he was 1 for 2 on a fastball, 0 for 2 on a breaking ball, and he would keep it, a composite, ongoing. And pretty soon it got to a point where Carew was hitting maybe 400 against fastballs and maybe 2 for 24 on breaking balls. So it got to a point where Earl would say, $100 fine, anybody throws Carew a fastball. So over the course of a game, we throw him 16, 18, 20 breaking balls in a row. It'd be unbelievable. Carew ground out 4 times to second base. He'd be yelling down the first baseline at Weaver to throw him a fastball. Earl Weaver was one of the first ones to keep track of that. And he taught me a lot about what guys hit against changeups, fastballs, and breaking balls. And I started keeping that in the minor leagues. Also, first pitch swingers. How many times did that guy swing at the first pitch? Guy swings at the first pitch 40 or 50% of the time. You get in a tight situation, and he comes up, and he's got runners in scoring position. What am I going to do? I'm going to tell my catcher to set up 0-2 on the first pitch, and I'm going to tell my pitcher to throw an 0-2 pitch on the first pitch. Little ground out roll over off the end of the bat. Thank you very much.
Now
that was Earl Weaver. That was back in the 60s.
Now, that's a very good point, because a guy like Kyle Schwarber, he's looking for a fastball when he's up there as a leadoff hitter at the beginning of the game. How would you, as a pitching coach, tell your pitchers to approach Kyle Schwarber?
Well, I'll give you a better. Castellanos. Swings to the first pitch, maybe the highest rate in all of baseball. Okay? You know he's vulnerable away because he pulls off the plate. He leaks a little bit. Okay? So I'm going to tell my catcher to set up 0-2 on every pitch away. And I'm going to throw him nothing but fastballs away or breaking balls away. And don't you panic. You fall behind 1-0 or 2-1. Don't you panic. He'll panic. Keep with the plan. Throw the ball 0-2 every pitch. He'll get himself out. He's not going to walk. He's going to get himself out.
What about Schwarber? How do you approach Schwarber if you're the pitching coach or the manager?
Well, Schwarber's average against the fastball is what, about 200, 250 points higher than it is against a breaking ball. So you might use the Earl Weaver theory with Schwarber. You can throw him 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 breaking balls in a row. You know, and when you get to the playoffs, believe me, you get in a series against a team that has a decent breaking ball pitcher on the mound, you're going to see him see 8, 10, 12, 15 breaking balls in a row in a playoff series.
All right, we got to take a quick break on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia, presented by Independence Blue Cross. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
SEPTA offers a variety of career opportunities. Our core business is transit, and with 5 modes of service, we rely on and need operators, engineers, and conductors. But it takes a host of other specialties, including mechanics, electricians, plumbers, masons, painters, carpenters, welders, and more to keep the system moving. As an employee, you will earn competitive compensation and great benefits, including medical, dental, prescription, and a pension. Visit jobs.septa.org to apply today. That's jobs.septa.org.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
We are back on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. Our special guest today, Joe Kerrigan, former Major League player, coach, manager, done it all in Major League Baseball. And remember, tonight, the Monday night kickoff show at the pub in Conshohocken with Paul Jolowitz, Paul Domowitch, and, of course, their special guest, Bill Berge. So I know Chris Irmer, our great producer, engineer extraordinaire, is doing double duty today. This guy is a tireless worker for Merrill Reese. I mean, we're very lucky to have.
I broke him in about 21 years ago.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. 21 years ago. That's
on the original show. Yeah. Inside Pitch it was called, yeah.
Now, let's talk about a guy who's pitching for the Braves this afternoon, Charlie Morton. He was a pupil of yours, right?
Had him in Pittsburgh my last 2 active years in 2009 and 2010, and Charlie was really scuffling then just to find himself as a pitcher. Had great stuff. Geez, had a great fastball, had a great curveball, but as most young pitchers, really didn't, he always used to switch back from a couple different deliveries. For a couple starts, he'd go over his head. For a couple starts, he used a simple delivery. And then, they just let him pitch, keep putting him out there, gain more experience, gain more confidence, and then, boy, he just took off. I mean, he just caught fire and took off. And it's pitched great ever since. I mean, God bless him. The guy's making $20 million a year.
Joe, when you were coming up as a pitching coach, were there a couple of guys you remember you said, man, this guy has all the ingredients to be a very solid pitcher, but never put it together?
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of guys that you see that have tremendous talent, like first-round draft pick kind of talent, and they get to the big leagues, but as soon as they get there, they falter, Or, you find some guys that put up great numbers in AA and AAA. They might be just a goofball. They're not really serious about it, But nowadays, teams stick with pitchers, I think, a little longer, especially Atlanta does. Especially guys with good arms. They have a lot more patience with pitchers, and I think that's a good thing. I think in today's game, we just don't stick long enough with pitchers. If they fail the first or second time, we bring them up to the major leagues, send them back down. We lose patience with them. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 times, for the guy to knock on the door and finally stay in the big leagues. It's a tough thing when you get to the big leagues. It's a shock. I know I'm good enough to get there, but boy, damn, I'm in the big leagues. This is pretty good.
Why is it so difficult to develop a left-handed pitcher, especially a starter? Is there something about the mindset of a left-hander?
Well, you're left-handed to begin with. I guess there is. But the best example I know of was we had a guy named Jeff Facero in Montreal, and really didn't come around until he was 27, 28 years old. And then, boy, when he found that he had 4 or 5 great years. Again, patience, especially with left-handers. A lot of them need to learn a third pitch. Usually a right-hander has it already. A lot of left-handers generally just have 2 pitches when they come up, or when they first get in the pro ball, they got to develop a pitch, especially a changeup. Left-hander nowadays, if he doesn't throw 100, he's got to have a good changeup simply because of the right-handed bats, the amount of right-handed bats he's going to face. And you look at Tommy Glavine, a guy that had average velocity, but had one of the greatest changeup in the history of the game. Pitched for 20 years, Hall of Famer.
How do you teach the changeup? As you said, most power pitchers want to use the fastball curve. How do you convey to those young men this is the third pitch you need in your arsenal?
And over my experience is try to keep the grip as simple as possible. Don't overcomplicate the grip. You have 2 fingers on the fastball. Try adding a 3rd finger on the changeup, for the changeup. Keep it as simple as possible. Keep the thumb in the same position underneath, not on the side, because you do need a rudder underneath the ball to guide it. Now, some guys have big fingers. They can split them just a little bit for a split finger changeup. Brett Saberhagen had one of the best split finger changeups I've ever seen. And all he did was split his fingers a little bit. So you try to experiment through the grips, what fits the guy's fingers, his hands, size of his hands, what he feels comfortable with holding the ball. He's got to have a comfort level for that when he holds the ball, when he throws it. So a lot of it is experimenting, maybe 2 or 3 different grips, and then maybe the light goes on in one of them. The guy feels comfortable, and he develops it.
Give me a couple of your favorite pupils when you were a pitching coach. Was there a couple of guys you said, man, I love to spend time with these guys because
geez, there's a lot. I mean, from Steve Rogers, Bill Gullickson, who I coached as a bullpen coach early. There was Jeff Reardon. There was Woody Fryman. My God, what he taught me about the game. And then you go on, and then you have Pedro, John Wetland. I mean, and then you move to Boston, and you got Flash Gordon there, who pitched for the Phillies. Then you got Brett Saberhagen. I had David Cohn one year. I had Dennis Eckersley one year. So, man, over a period of about 4 decades, I was able to watch and learn from a lot of great pitchers.
What pitcher?
Jim Palmer.
Jim Palmer. Okay. Geez. What pitchers would try to pick your mind as a pitching coach? I mean, all good pitchers would do that. But there's a couple that come to mind. This guy was really intent on becoming a great pitcher.
Well, a lot of them would pick your brain, and then you would relay stories about, this is what Tom Seaver thinks about that. Or this is what Steve Rogers thinks about the curveball. Or this is what Jim Palmer taught me about the changeup. You would kind of, the thought is not yours. You're almost relaying it down from another generation, which I think a lot of good pitching coaches do.
Joe, great job today. Tremendous job. I learned a lot of baseball today, a lot of baseball.
Great talking baseball with you.
I thought I knew some, but you took me over the top. We got to thank Joe Kerrigan today for being our special guest on the Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's in South Philadelphia. Of course, the great job by Dr. Chris Ermer, engineer, producer extraordinaire. Until next week. Now remember, Dan Baker's special guest next week in Glassboro, New Jersey will be Gene Garber. Until, again, on the Bull Session, I'm Bill Werndl along with Joe Kerrigan. See you later.
There you go.